Yeah, I think we are live. I think we are live, guys. I'm using my new setup for the first time. I'm going live through this new streaming platform for me, OBS Studio. So if there are any technical difficulties, then please let me know. If any of you should be joining me live, then do let me know. So it's the night before the midterms. I'm about to go to bed here in rural Sweden. And I must say that I am feeling the impact of tomorrow, and I think a lot of people are. So I want to go a little bit into what's been moving over the last couple of days, and maybe up to a week back, starting with the big revelation in The Intercept about what the DHS and the FBI have been doing to control the flow of information on social media. Now, that in and of itself is a huge story, and as far as I'm concerned, it is much bigger than Watergate, but it doesn't seem to me like many people know that it's happening, and that when they are exposed to this idea that the Biden administration, together with the US deep state, have been completely controlling social media in order to control what kind of information mainly the US people, because of course I cannot vote, being that I live in Scandinavia. But the idea, I think it's about 70% of people's news comes through social media these days, and the idea that the government is presiding over what kind of information you can have access to is pretty damn dramatic in my perception. So we're going to look a little bit at that. The enigmatic Elon Musk has been, of course, playing into the things that are happening leading up to the midterms. He's a very unpredictable character for me. I don't know if I can trust him. It seems to me like the things that Elon Musk is doing right now is revealing a lot of the monsters that have been hiding in the cupboards, in the wardrobes, and under the beds. And it's very interesting to see how the progressive left is completely melting down and now considering Elon Musk to be practically a fascist for using capitalism to take over Twitter legally, when the Biden administration has just been revealed to be censoring and putting false information into the comments illegally. Now, this is rather a stark hypocrisy as far as I'm concerned. But, I started, as so many do, orienting to politics through a very liberal framework. And in many places, I'm still quite liberal. Now, a lot of the men that I worked with, for those of you who don't know this, I've been running Reclaiming Your Throne, which is a transformational coaching business for men since 2014. And a lot of the men have been, shall we say, more liberally minded. But we've seen something happen with the realm of politics where those who have been loyal to party and not to truth have completely changed their perception of what is good and not good. Most recently, for me, I'm looking at what's happening with the left and war. Now, it used to be that war was like uncool. Like, of course, Democrat politicians went to war all of the time. Obama went to a ton of wars, dropped a lot of bombs. Of course, we see Bill Clinton was a warmonger. Like, everyone's a warmonger when it comes to politics in the Americas. Apart from Trump, who didn't start any wars. Actually, I don't think he's received enough credit for that. But there's been this widely held perception that the left were the anti-war party. Right now, that has changed. And even Bernie Sanders now wants war in Ukraine. Rather interesting as far as I'm concerned, because being somebody who started out quite left-leaning, I am still against war. And what is the party that's against war these days? Well, that is the party on the right. the Republicans. What happened there? How did things flip so completely? I find that rather interesting and something that is really, I think, confusing a lot of people. Because if I'm still living in the assumption that I'm this person that the left used to be, and actually the left is just digging war, like, not just war, but Biden seems to be dreaming of nuclear Armageddon, while at the same time he's trying to save the world from climate destruction. But, who cares if we blow it up with nuclear bombs on the way there, right? Now, the inconsistencies and the hypocrisies are just rather delusional level, shall we say. But let me pick up this Intercept story and see if we can spend a little bit of time on that. You may have already seen this on channels like Tim, what's his name? Yeah, I don't remember. The Tim guy. Let's see here. Here we go. This is an interesting story. This came out in The Intercept, which is a publication that I don't fully trust because I'm a big Glenn Greenwald fan, the independent journalist that took the Edward Snowden case to us. And he, as far as I know, he was one of the founders of The Intercept, and he had to leave because it became untenable for him to be there given the political climate and all of the woke bullshit that was happening there. But maybe they changed. At the very least, they got this story to us. Truth Cops leaked documents outline DHS's plans to police disinformation. This is a rather long article, so I'm not going to go through this whole thing. But let's see here. We have here the shocking, in my perception, revelation that over the past several years, the Biden administration has been working closely with pretty much all of the social media platforms, Twitter and Facebook, been working with Microsoft, Google, to police disinformation. And of course, it's up to the Biden administration and the American deep state, that being FBI, DHS, and so on and so forth, what constitutes disinformation. Obviously, like, who else is going to decide it than them, right? So Microsoft executive Matt Masterson speaks this: platforms have to get comfortable with government. It's really interesting how hesitant they remain. So this is a Microsoft executive that is kind of whining about why the platforms have actually had some level of opposition to the overreaches from the Biden administration. I'm looking for a particular paragraph here. How disinformation is defined by the government has not been clearly articulated, and the inherently subjective nature of what constitutes disinformation provides a broad opening for DHS officials to make politically motivated determinations about what constitutes dangerous speech. Now, obviously, by now, if you have opinions that are different to the Biden administration, you are a threat. We're more or less at that place because the Democrats have gone batshit crazy. I don't think there's any other way to say it. Now, there's a lot of people out there that would say the same things about the Republicans because they believe in Q and conspiracy theories. I'm not going to have a conversation about that right now. But the idea that a Biden administration is policing the flow of information into social media and presumably calling it protecting democracy is a bit damn rich, isn't it? So that's been going on. that's been going on. They've had backdoors into Facebook, backdoors into the executive teams. They have been meeting with Twitter executives. I think Twitter especially often. I don't remember her name, Vijay or something. That executive that I think of Indian origin, wasn't she? That was at the head of a lot of censorship decisions over the last couple of years, and they met with her like once per week, telling her what to do, what to flag. This is not information that we want out there. This is information that we do want out here. Often the information that they wanted out there was falsehoods and things they didn't want out there, such as the Hunter Biden laptop. They were true. It's a real problem. And I was actually speaking, this was very interesting to me, to see the kind of cognitive dissonance that a lot of people have around this, because of the level of identification that they have to party and not to truth. It was Norwegian media personality Kjetil Rollnes that I used to admire back in the days for daring to speak in popular truths about certain problems with immigration that we had and certain problems about wokeness. When it came to the pandemic, he became like this persecutor of the unvaccinated, and he is on some absolutely delusional crusade against Q. It seems like he's been taken by the spirit of Q, like Trump lives rent-free in his mind, and it's like dominates his world completely, as it does for so many people who have fallen completely for Trump derangement syndrome. And he is there posting about this stuff, about the problems of, oh, what if Trump should return because of Q, blah 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 blah. And then I actually post this article from The Intercept suggesting that, hey, this is a pretty big problem for the people that you seem to care about. Like, you're pro these people that are literally undermining democracy and democratic elections. And he couldn't take that in, because in his narrative, like a charming, brilliant woman like Carrie Lake, who I absolutely love, the gubernatorial candidate for the Republicans in Arizona. What an amazing woman. Like, dares to speak the truth, is courageous, but hasn't like completely sacrificed her femininity in the process. Like, for instance, Hillary Clinton, the ice queen, sphinx-like figure. And no, this Kjetil, he has to speak about Carrie Lake as she is some deranged lunatic, because she doesn't accept that there were no, well, she didn't see the 2020 election as having zero problems with them. And I present these evidence to him, which is basically flat out proving that Carrie Lake is absolutely right to have certain issues with the 2020 elections. And what does it do? Well, he just removes me from Facebook because he cannot address that, because it's the truth, so he cannot actually deal with it. And we're seeing this happen over and over and over again, where people get completely fixated on a particular way of seeing the world, and then they get irrefutable evidence that their perspective is actually inaccurate. They melt down. They melt down. And this is, I think, one of the great challenges that we have now, that with all of this evidence coming out, that yes, there's a lot of issues with election integrity in the United States. And you're not supposed to speak about that because it makes you a conspiracy theorist. Unless you are a left-leaning publication you have been complaining and demonizing everyone on the right for the past 2 years for having problems with the election, even though you were exactly the kind of people that for 4 years previously argued that there were problems with the 2016 election. Now, because there is seemingly going to be a red wave tomorrow, now, all of a sudden, there are security threats to watch for on election day. So, after. Yeah. How is this possible? How can somebody like Politico, this fucking rag of, like, sometimes they put out good stuff, sometimes, but what is this? Come on, you like everyone else in the mainstream media, for 2 years straight, you have been demonizing anyone actually having certain issues with election integrity in the United States, and now you are the very person having, or the very publication having issues with election integrity in the United States. Why? Because there's a red wave coming, so now you need a reason to actually question the election. Cognitive dissonance, anyone? How can somebody seemingly intelligent hold that in their mind and at the same time complain that the dangerous QAnon have been questioning election integrity? Well, you cannot. Which is one of the real threats, I believe, for tomorrow. Because, well, shall we say, regardless of what happens, half of the population will think it was illegitimate. No, I think more than half of the population will think so if the Republicans win, because all polls indicate that. I mean, there's no chance, based on what we now know, that the Democrats can win tomorrow. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Then we have good old Elon. Used to be a champion for environmentalism. The left used to love him. Electric cars, right? So called environmentally friendly. So wonderful. Not quite as environmentally friendly as we thought they would be. It turns out, given that you have to drive it for 60,000 miles before it actually starts saving some carbon dioxide due to the very intensive energy consumption during the production. But of course you have the cobalt mines, the terrible human sufferings involved with all of that mining of raw materials. The batteries are super toxic, so on and so forth. But nevertheless, Elon Musk, is this fascinating character that now is encouraging people to vote red. Because he considers it important to have certain checks and balances, politically speaking. Now, of course, he's been called a fascist for this. He bought it legally. And for some reason, as I already said, it's much more problematic for Elon Musk to legally buy Twitter and send certain political messages through Twitter than it is for the Biden administration to completely capture all social media platforms and use them to police disinformation, though much of that disinformation was actually true and much of what they shared was actually a lie. So this is where we're at. We're in trouble in the world, right? And regardless of what happens, we're going to have a challenging week. We're going to have a challenging week. And I don't know that there's anything that any one of us can do, because people are getting triggered left, right, and center because of what's going on, right? But at the end of the day, if you have attachment at this point to political ideology, I think it's time to change that. Because there will be a potential situation in which this red wave will completely wash over us. And I think that's quite likely. And then if people magically assume that things are going to be good just because the Republicans are now in power, no. It might be better because of the level of corruption in the Biden administration and the level of pushing for nuclear war and for World War III that's happening from the sitting administration. I mean, they're completely deranged. But at the same time, the system as it exists is irredeemably broken as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know that we can trust, well, certainly I don't know if we can trust Elon Musk, but I don't know who we can trust exactly. And so ultimately, it will all come back to us. I think this is the growing realization for many of us that there are no politicians that can save us. We must save ourselves. The systems as we know them are breaking down. I don't think they can be saved. I may be wrong about that, but I don't think they can be saved. And so as we're moving into a future that looks like it's going to be more decentralized and that are going to see communities that are depending more on their own food production and their own, well, localized skills, I think it's just important for us to connect in communities and to start preparing for the next wave, shall we say, of our cultural unfolding, our paradigm shift, because it's changing. There's no way to go back. And I don't think we're supposed to go back with a system that's this fucking broken. So, but I'm curious what will happen. I think if we are seeing an election that drags out over the whole of the week, that will indicate that there is some kind of election irregularity happening, which is probably going to be picked up by a lot of people, and then that may lead to protests. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody is going to try and leverage conflict between the left and the right, because ultimately it's not about the left and the right. We know that the Republican administrations in the past, like the Bush administration, they have been equally as deranged as the sitting Biden administration, and they're colluding with it, and they're comrades on their mission, and it's ultimately it's not about left and right. It's about a certain level, like the upper echelons of society, at least as they see themselves. They are waging war on us, and they're leveraging political polarization as the way in which we can fight each other and they can push forwards their shared agenda in the unipolar political system. I think that is changing with the America First politicians, like Carrie Lake. There's just no way she's going to continue that tradition, which I'm happy about. So let's see how it plays out. But, let me know what you think. And maybe I'm wrong about a lot of things here. Maybe I pissed you off, or maybe I made you very happy. So let me know in the comments below. And let's see. Fingers crossed that we'll make it through this week without too much chaos. Bye-bye.